$1 trillion for the Russian army. During his 21 years in office, Putin has made militarization a top budget item. For the sake of this, the Kremlin saves on education, medicine and science. But even such injections did not make the Russian army the second in the world, no matter how the Kremlin propagandists tried to convince everyone of the opposite. Large-scale losses in manpower and equipment in Ukraine are proof of this. Every day the Kremlin spends on the war minimum $400 million.
Today, each combat unit that the Russian Federation uses in the war against Ukraine becomes ready in 6 months, even more than 6 months.
After all, making up for losses is difficult and expensive. Let's take a look at the most expensive one. The missile cruiser Moskva, which was hit and sunk by the armed forces of Ukraine back in April, cost Russia $750 million. This is in the basic configuration. The minimum price of each aircraft is $25 million. Their Ukrainian defenders shot down more than 200. But there is another item of expenditure: people. The training of one pilot costs Russian taxpayers from $100 to $200,000.
A pilot is a combat unit worth its weight in gold. A professional pilot requires almost 10 years of training. And that the most valuable thing is the participation in any military operations. Of course, this especially hits the budget when these dozens of combat units get killed or wounded, or get captured. Another very interesting indicator is refusal. These are pilots who refuse to fly, and 10 years spent on raising a combat unit, they go to waste.
And also tanks, artillery, armored vehicles, air defense systems. All this draws hundreds of millions of US dollars from the Russian budget. Let's add the cost of manpower. Soldiers need to be dressed, put on shoes, fed and then paid so-called coffin money. By the way, 50,000 people have already fallen under this item of expenditure. Turning people into consumables for the Kremlin is not only a basic principle, but also a military tactic.
Over and over again, the Russians send almost all new assault troops to the slaughter. They are untrained, unequipped, and incapable of operating in today's fast-paced combat. I think this will continue further, and this fits into the paradigm of the Soviet General Zhukov version of combat operations, an attempt to bombard enemy trenches with a large number of bodies of Russian soldiers.
Another weak link in the Russian army is logistics. When the armed forces of Ukraine began to destroy the warehouses and bases of the invaders, they did not even think to go deeper into the rear, experts say.
Over and over again, Ukrainian missiles fly there, and the Ukrainian Chornobyivka and the airfield in Melitopol area and other objects where over and over again the Russians concentrate ammunition, equipment, but Ukrainian missiles fly there and decimate everything that the Russians have all the time pull on these areas.
In addition to the military, the Kremlin suffers economic losses. After all, because of the sanctions, the work of the Russian military-industrial complex is becoming more complicated every day. Experts predict that by the beginning of the next year, Russia will run out of ammunition and it will be difficult to make new ones.
Around the beginning of 2023, Russia will be able to rely not so much on the stocks of ammunition that it has in warehouses, but exclusively on its production capabilities. And the capabilities are not so great as to provide units for offensive operations, and even more so, even a defense with such potential, they will not be able to hold.
According to the minimum estimates, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia has spent $60 billion on the war. This money would be enough to provide gas supply to all of Russia 5 times. After all, in a gas country, millions of people still cook in the oven. $12 billion would be enough to supply gas to all Russians, even to the most remote regions. So consider, what is more important for the Putin: imperial ambitions or the lives of citizens of his country? Reported by Serhiy Kulyas, Ksenia Barvinenko, UATV News.